Hello Linux fans, Rob here and welcome to Linux Quest. It's been a while, but before I get into things, I want to wish you all a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Linux Mint continues to be a very popular Linux operating system. And there's many reasons why. It's got a stable base, a large following, lots of support, and Linux Mint used to really be an innovator. And many of the Linux distributions out there today have kind of caught up with some of the innovations that Linux Mint put in place. So it continues to be very popular. Now, I ran Linux Mint in 2017 with the XFCE desktop much longer earlier than a year than I expected. That's because it was so stable and XFCE seems to run so well within Linux Mint. So today we've got a look at Linux Mint 18.3, the latest for long-term support. I think it takes you out to 2021, and this is Sylvia. So we're going to just kind of take a look, a surface look. I'm going to go through and make some changes. I want to talk about this operating system and this desktop as if you were brand new to Linux. Maybe you're someone exploring what options are available. So I'm going to cover things from that standpoint, not so much for in-depth details for an experienced Linux user. So with that all said, let's jump in. I've got to make an apology here. I had some technical difficulties with my mouse, so you may hear some mouse clicking in the background. This is a noisy mouse, so my apologies there. All right, so first of all, let's take a look at new features in Linux Mint. So again, 18.3. And so the software manager, let's talk about that briefly and we'll take a look at that later on in the video, but there have been some updates. It was showing its age. I agree with their statement here, so they have polished this thing up. They've added some additional software into the repository and also included Flatpak support, so that's a biggie. So if there's that wayward piece of software that you can't find within the repositories and it's hard to install other ways through the terminal, then you can quickly access the more than likely most updated version through Flatpak and set that up easily within the software manager. So great to see that. All right, so moving on, and some of this will kind of skip over the details, but you got updates within the backup tool, so that's very nice to see. And moving on here, system reports, so that's been developed. It's to generate reports whenever there's a software crash, and it'll show the information relevant to your computer and kind of what you were doing within the environment at that time. So that'll help with further development of the operating system, so good to see that. Also, XApp improvements. So the text editor now features a mini map, and then the toolbar, which is PDF Reader, X Reader, has been improved. History buttons replaced, navigation buttons, things like that. And the XApps are one of those group of apps that kind of sets Linux Mint a little bit apart in that they have their own apps for doing certain tasks, typically multimedia, things like that. And then I was happy to see this XFCE improvements, which is something you typically don't see. XFCE, it's not exactly a Ferrari when it comes to updates and adding things. They kind of are known for moving at a snail's pace. But anyway, we see some improvements here, which are better looking notifications that are more customizable. So you can set up a do not disturb mode, and you can set up ignore for specific applications, which is very nice. They've got an improved login screen here that gives you the option to turn off or on certain panel indicators, so for startup, so that's nice. And then other improvements, again, to do with your driver manager. And so in my case, I set up this Lenovo ThinkPad using the Intel Microde, so that makes it easier, especially if you're new and you're setting up Linux Mint for the first time. That's part of what you see on the welcome screen, and the reason is you always want to check and see what drivers may be available for your particular hardware to make sure the system's going to run as well as it possibly can. Let's move on here. Artwork improvements, so we'll take a look at wallpapers and things like that. And yes, this is, again, long-term support here up until 2021. Now, the main components of 18.3 are XFCE 4.12, Linux kernel 4.10, and this is all built off of the Ubuntu 16.04 package base. Very stable. All right. So on the welcome screen, you've got new features, which we just covered. If you want to get into some in-depth documentation, you click on this. It'll open up a PDF with all kinds of details about the operating system. Then you have apps. So let's just go ahead and launch right into additional software. That's going to launch you into the software manager. Now it's going to load kind of slow. This system's not a speed demon. There are other ways of obtaining your software, and that's called through, did I actually click it? Okay, there we go. Didn't realize it was going to be that slow. Now this is definitely, okay, I launched more than one instance. How many instances? I launched 3 or 4 instances. I'm rusty. So here we go, much improved. It does have a much cleaner interface, and you're going to see categories here at the bottom. So accessories. We'll launch into that. And then there'll be subcategories if they are available. So for example, if we go into internet, now you're going to see subcategories here on the left. So if you want to drill down into email clients, for example. But nicely done. You get a kind of a description of what the software is. So if we click on Shutter, this is going to tell you that this is a feature-rich. Let's go ahead and maximize this. Feature-rich screenshot program. It is very good, by the way. But this goes through and gives you detailed features so that you can decide if this is something you would like to install. You also see ratings down here with various suggestions. So really nicely done. But bam, one-click install. So much improved there. And this is kind of the world we're in, where people from their smartphones are used to just going into the App Store. Now, if you're coming from Windows 10, for example, you've got the Windows Store, or whatever Microsoft calls it, and there you're kind of doing the same thing. So in that regard, you could say that Microsoft copied Linux, because Linux had a software manager similar to what we see here prior to Microsoft developing theirs. Now, you could also take that all the way back to Apple with with their software manager, their software store, as well as Android. But as far as desktop operating system to desktop operating system, this is an area where I believe that Windows copied Linux. All right, so easy to navigate there, and down here's your Flatpak support. So you've got a long list. Spotify, some of these will be applications that you're very familiar with, and GNOME Maps, for example. So you do have a map program there available. I'm going to scroll on down and see anything that stands out. Lots of games, it looks like. There's Skype. And let's see here. So if you wanted to install, let's just pick something here. Something simple. Let's see here. Alright, so if you wanted to choose a to-do manager, for example, one-click install. So nicely done. Good job. Good improvement. Alright, now let's go over here to drivers. Again, that's what you're going to want to check out. I'm not going to launch this. It takes a little while. It kind of scans the system. It'll pop up and offer you suggestions. If there are drivers available for your system, you'll see options to choose that and install it. You could jump into the forums or chat room. This is how you get involved with the actual project. So if you're a long-term Linux user or developer and you want to get involved, there you go. And the all-important donations. Now, I toggle this off, but if you want this welcome screen to appear every time you boot in, you could choose that. It'll be on by default. All right, so we want to jump over to another area that kind of, I guess I'm going to say it's the one thing that bugs me the most about Linux Mint, and that's this green logo you see here. It's always bothered me for whatever reason, so we're going to change some things. I'm going to go through the process that I go through normally when I'm setting up especially the XFCE desktop, and so maybe this will help you if you're new to see all the ways you can configure XFCE, especially with the ever powerful Whisker menu. So we're going to kind of dig into that, keep things light and easy. We're not going to go in depth on any one particular thing. We're also going to do a quick rundown here of what's installed out of the box, and this will be good for you if you're new to see that Linux is very powerful. Most Linux-based operating systems have a nice selection of very useful software. It's just that it's named different or looks different than what you see in Windows if you're coming for that world, or the Mac world for that matter. All right, but first things first, let's get rid of this Linux Mint wallpaper, as well as this, in my opinion, ugly green. That's their default. I get it. They're different. But for me, it's just not to my palate, and we're going to get rid of this logo down here as well. So first things first, we've got to right-click on the desktop, and you've got lots of options. I'm not going to get into everything here. I may do more in-depth videos on this version of Mint a little later. So for now, you want to go to Desktop Settings. There's 3 areas we're going to change. The first one is Desktop Settings, and this is going to populate a list of really nice wallpapers. That's something that the Mint team has started to put in place over several versions, and they've got a beautiful selection, I will say. So let's find something fitting for the season. Maybe is there a snow or Christmas tree? So we'll apply that. And then you've got some options here under 2 other tabs, Menus and Icons. Now icons, we'll skip over menus for now. We'll go to icons. If you prefer to have a nice clean desktop with no icons on it, you can toggle off anything that's on or that you've turned on. So by default, home was on. So we're going to go ahead and turn that off. If you like folders on your desktop, you can adjust things like the icon size. So let's bump that up to something larger. You see that? You can change the font. Lots of options here to get things looking the way you like. All right, so that's area 1. Again, that was under Desktop Settings. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to go into the menu. We're going to go to Settings, and we're going to go to Appearance. That's where you will change things like the icon type or style, as well as some of the colors within the file manager. So you see here that minty green, beautiful folders, beautiful icons, and you'll notice that they change color as we hover over. And this is the Thunar file manager, which is really competent, keeps things simple, and it's one of the reasons I really like this desktop, the XFCE desktop. All right, so go back. We're going to go into Settings. We're going to go into Appearance, and now we've got a nice long list of various themes or styles, if you will. And I think that the Mint team has done a good job here. So we're going to go to Mint Aqua. I like that one. And let's see here, XFCE, there's a lot of those that are built in as well. But in this case, I'm going to go with this aqua color, and you'll see that there is also a Mint Aqua icon theme in place that matches the style. So we're going to change those 2 things. Under font, we're going to keep them just as they are because they look extremely good on this particular system. If you have problems with the fonts being a little fuzzy or not looking exactly right on your system, you could try changing things like hinting and to go from slight to medium or full. You could also change the DPI setting and see if that'll help you out some. And if you're vision impaired, here's an area where you could go in and increase the font size, which could be helpful to you. And then we'll go to Settings. So you've got a few things here. If you want to show images or buttons on the menus, you can toggle that on or off here. Also, if you have event sounds in place, you could turn that on. We're going to keep that off for now. So that's under Appearance. That's the second area where I go to change things on my desktop. So we're going to close that out. And now if we go back in, you'll see that these are blue. Now, we'll go up here and we're going to change the size of these folders. And I'm going to do this because I want to show you how well they scale. We're going to zoom in and make these things even larger. And you can see that everything scales up, and it's still just, in my opinion, just beautiful. The color change as you hover over to indicate where you are, all of it. It's just very crisp and sharp as it should be. So very nice there. All right, we're going to close that out. Now let's go to one other area, and that is the whisker menu. Now that's a huge reason why I like XFCE, is this menu can do just about anything you want it to do. So if you had long descriptions, you could stretch that over. Maybe you want it to be narrow and small. You can just slide that wherever you want. You can do the same with any of the windows within XFCE, and that's really nice. It keeps things light without preventing you from changing things. I'll put it that way. All right, so we want to get rid of this little minty, or I do. Maybe you don't. Maybe you love it. We're going to get rid of this, and the way we're going to do that is right-click, and we're going to go to Properties. And you'll see here we've got several tabs, so this is the third area where we're changing things. And what we're going to do, if you had downloaded a particular icon that you like, you could change that by simply clicking on the icon, and you'll get a pop-up to choose that new icon. In this case, I'm simply going to go to Title. Now, I've already typed in here Linux Quest, and I'm going to go to Title, and when I do that, you'll see here that that icon goes away, and now we see Linux Quest here. Now, some other things that I do, I'm going to leave this on for now, but I typically toggle off Show Application Descriptions. And the reason is it takes up more space as you're kind of scrolling through the various applications. It kind of gives it more of a cluttered look. Now, I know what most of these do, but for the purposes of this video, we're going to leave those on as I scroll through. Because again, if you're new, I want you to be able to kind of see what all is available in this particular OS. All right, so we're going to leave that as it is. Then you could go to Behavior, and you could change where the search entry and things like that are. Now it's at the bottom. We could turn that off, and you'll see that now go to the top. So we'll take that back. And then if you wanted to show favorites or not show favorites, you could choose that. You could set up your own personal commands and your own personal search actions. So there's lots more here, but for the sake of time in this video, those are the three main areas where I go to kind of change the look of the desktop within XFCE and thus Linux Mint 18.3. So now that we've got that, we'll take a quick look at what's pre-installed, and we'll kind of make it as fast as possible, but anything that stands out I want to point out to you, especially if you're coming from the world of Windows. So you've got a calculator under Accessories. Archive Manager, I'll talk about that. If you're used to working with zip files in Windows, Archive Manager, the same thing. It works on the same premise. You'll notice within Linux, a lot of the tools that are already in place do much of what you'll find on Windows. In a lot of cases more. It's just named different and it looks different. And the user interface is typically different. But once you start getting into the various applications with Linux, I think you'll find that a lot of times it's easier and it does a better job than much of what you find on Windows. Calculator, File Search, Disk Management, Document Viewer for PDFs, an Image Viewer just to browse through your images built in, on-screen keyboard, which is nice. Maybe you've got hardware issues or something, you could use the on-screen keyboard. Redshift, now that's something that's new in this version, and that simply removes a lot of the blue light from your screen. It's better for your eyes and supposedly helps you sleep better after a night of computer use. Screenshot tool is built in. That's the Thunar file manager we just looked at. Tomboy Notes for quick note taking. Nothing's going to be quick on this system, by the way. You'll see the little icon pop up here, but nothing's quick on this this Lenovo, so you got to start here. So we'll skip over that, but if you needed a note tool, quickly look at that. We'll go back to Accessories. Screenshot tool, we saw that. USB image writer and USB stick formatter, as well as XFBurn, which is a tool for creating and authoring CDs and DVDs, or burning those to DVD. Under Graphics, you're going to see the GIMP Image Editor, which is an excellent tool. There's a bit of a learning curve for that, but it's an excellent tool for going in and editing photos. Pix, which is a simple viewer, and that I think is a part of the X apps. It's just going to have kind of a clean, generic, sparse look to it, but it'll do a good job. All right, we'll go back. Let's go under Internet. You're going to see Firefox as the default browser. You can install Chromium within the software manager, which is very much like Chrome. So if you're coming from the Windows world and you use Chrome, yes, you can install Chrome on Linux. You go about it a different way than the software manager, or you could use Chromium, which is the open source version of Chrome. Then you have some chat software here, Thunderbird, which is an email program. And then if you're into BitTorrents, you've got Transmission. Under Multimedia, I installed Kdenlive to edit my videos. I always use that. But you have Play Movies here. It's a very simple, clean video player. Or, by default, installed under Multimedia is VLC Media Player. And if you come from Windows, chances are you're familiar with that. And then we have Rhythmbox here to play your music. And I installed VocoScreen. That's an app I use to actually capture this screen and record it for this video for the channel. Now let's move on to Office. You're going to see the well-known LibreOffice, and for most people that works just as well as Microsoft Office. It will exchange most formats. There are different ways and different icons, different ways of doing things and different icons within LibreOffice. But for, I'm going to say 95% of what you need to do within an Office suite, LibreOffice will work. Then we have settings, where you'll see lots of settings for appearance and Bluetooth settings, various desktop settings, languages, things like that, backup, settings manager. So we'll go into that settings manager, and here's where things are improving. You see nice categorized list of all the various settings. Now this is going to be familiar to you if you've ever taken a look at Control Panel within Windows, kind of the same concept. You keep all your various settings right here. Alright, and moving on, we'll go into System. And here you have Software Manager again. That's the same software manager we launched into from the beginning. But you also have, for more experienced users who want more of a streamlined approach, Synaptic Package Manager. You can configure your network and your printers here within System Settings. You've got a Task Manager, and this is the new System Reports. So if you have any issues with the system, it'll generate a report. And there's Time Shift for restore of your system. Update Manager, which is important. We have an update here now. And one of the things that stands out within Linux Mint is they have a level rating. So they have like 1, 2, 3 or 1, 2, 3, 4. You can choose what you want to update based on level. And you can also tell by level that chances are with level 1, you're not installing something or updating something that's going to break your system. So it's kind of a nice way to quickly glance and know, okay, this is level 1 or 2 here. Chances are I can update this without any issues. Alright, well that's kind of a quick roundabout me getting my feet wet back into the channel because it's been so long since I've done a video. Again, I kept things light here. I'm going to have this installed and we'll be doing some follow-up videos, more details on probably settings and things like that within Linux Mint 18.3. As I kind of get back into the channel more. I've missed you guys. I've missed interacting with you and kind of missed doing the videos. It was great to be on Destination Linux with Rocco. I hate that Ryan wasn't able to make it, but it was certainly awesome to kind of get back in and do that show again. So that's it for now. Hope you've enjoyed the video, and I've got some other things coming up, so please stay tuned.